Well, hello there, and welcome to Baghdad International Airport, formerly known as Baghdad-Saddam Airport, but not anymore. We are here in the mighty Dash going around the world as it is, turbulent, troubled, odd, interesting, the world in all its glory. We are seeing a bit of every last corner of it. And right now we are heading, oddly enough, of course, because geography and history make strange bedfellows, we are heading right now from Baghdad to Kuwait, about a 300-mile trip. And after that, we're going to jump out across the Indian Ocean and head to, I think, Mumbai. If not, we might have to make an intermediate stop in Karachi, but Mumbai and then across India and then up into the Himalayas, and then we're probably going to do a little zigzagging around, and I'm going to visit my good friend the Flying Dad in Australia and do a quick lap of his fair country, and probably we'll do a little bit of extreme flying in New Zealand as well. We're here on the runway instead of on the tarmac because, as you can see, it's not much of a terminal. It's not custom scenery. I don't think anybody's made anything for Baghdad, but we're going to fly into a nice custom airport in Kuwait. We've got a good day for flying. Let me just show you what the flight plan is real quickly, and very quickly. Let me just turn off the sound here and show you what we're doing. We're going to depart on the appropriately named Baghdad 1 departure, and the Baghdad 1 departure is pretty much just a heading. In our case, 150 to 5,300 feet, and then radar vectors. We will set an initial altitude of 8,000 feet once we put our minds to it. And that is really about it. And we're sort of going in that general direction anyway, so that's good. So we will go off from there. We will fly to the fix known as Lovek, and we'll hop on the spectacular L602 airway, take that to the southeast, and then we will head right into the mouth of the Gulf that goes by various names depending on who stakes claim to it, but commonly known as the Persian Gulf. And we will depart from that airway over this here island and over this fix Ralka, and then actually we're going to fly somewhere around to about here, and probably, if the wind holds up, fly into I think runway 15 left or 15 right, I'm not sure which, into Kuwait City, and should be very, very nice, fairly uneventful, one hopes. Not too much in the way of SIGMETs or warnings or cautions or flight restrictions or anything. We're going to fly at flight level 250, but while we're at it here, let's throw in our initial altitude, which is going to be 8,000 feet. We've already set our altimeter. I'll just show you the route really quickly. I know we're hogging the runway here, but it's a simulator, and we can do that. Our route is going to take us through our Baghdad 1. This manual here is the line that they leave in when they expect you to get vectors here. So we'll give ourselves some vectors and point ourselves in the direction of Lovek, and then we'll give ourselves permission, because we can do that, to go direct Lovek. But we'll do a little vectoring first and show you how in the dash you check your flight plan. Very similar to Boeing FMCs, except that it jumps page by page instead of fix by fix, which can be a little bit inconsiderate and makes it a little bit hard to puzzle out everything. And also, it doesn't draw things quite as beautifully as a Honeywell FMC does. But let us do this, what you do is you hit the format key, and you see that toggles into the map or the legs mode, and then that toggles it back. So we toggle into here, and we use our range key so we can see our flight plan, and then we just go up here and step through it. So there's Lovek, and there's Mutlow, there's our airway, there's Ralka, which is the beginning of our star, and Passel. And then instead of going to the fix on the end of the star, which happens to be beyond here, instead we're going to switch over manually, and we're going to acquire the localizer all by ourselves right here and fly the ILS into 15 right on blue needles. We're on pink needles now, and just to refresh everybody, pink needles means we're taking our navigational instructions from the FMS, or from the GPS more accurately, or the combination of stuff that makes up the navigatory tools here, whether it's the inertial portion of it, the GPS portion of it, or the tuning in stuff. It blends it all together and spits it out here and here. And you switch it by switching your nav source. You can switch from FMS1 to FMS2, and you can see it ain't showing nothing, and that's because we didn't cross-fill our flight plan. So let's open up that FMS2, go to Data, go to Exfil flight plan, and in that goes Exfil fuel, cross-fill meaning, and in that goes and return, and now you'll see that we have an identical flight plan, and you'll see that our needle is centered, but we want to go back to FMS1. Now you can also navigate from Nav1, and you can see that it's blue, or Nav2, and it is blue. So in the parlance of the Mighty Dash, that is a pink needle or a blue needle departure, and we're doing a pink needle departure. And we're going to do it in full FMC mode. So we're going to turn on our yaw damper, and we're going to put our mode into nav, and you see it goes to LNAV. Now it says pitch hold. We don't want it to hold pitch. We want it in so-called go-around mode, which is going to give us guidance to climb. So we hit, well, what we do is we hit this button here, but I've got it bound to a key on my joystick, and boom, that raises our pitch target to right about there, and that is a reasonable rate of climb, and so there it is. We've already set our altimeter 3003. We need to set our V speeds, and you do that by selecting this, and you see this selects the different bugs. But of course we want V1 first, so we spin it up to 129, which I've calculated in advance. VR is also 129. I've also got a Lewis script that does this, but I neglected to do it this time, and it doesn't work once the engines are turning, so I went and calculated it myself based on load and the fuel. And V fry, which is our flaps retraction speed, is 146, and our V climb is 153. Boom, done. Now, before I do anything else, you know, I'm not entirely sure that we've loaded the right number of passengers on here, so let me just make doubly sure by going into our config tool and weight and balance. And as you can see, we have 0 passengers and 0 cargo. That's for my last flight, so 20 pounds a bag and 20 pounds a bag. We want 5 pieces in the front because you don't hold a lot in the front, and we want 30 pieces in the back, and we're going to have a full load of passengers. We should have done this at the gate, but if I'm anything, I'm 2 things, and those 2 things are lazy and stupid. Alright, so here we go. We hit calculate. We see that our trim and our weights are within our target, except it's given us 2,000 pounds of fuel, and we want 6,000 on each side to give us plenty of traveling time. Calculate. Hit calculate, and everything is still within limits. Let me just make a mental note of our cargo weight, passengers and bags, so that is 15,559. I'm going to send it to the flight sim. It pauses us. We unpause. We verify, and we haven't given ourselves enough fuel because I miscalculated that. It shouldn't be 6,000. It should be, let's make it 8500 and 8500, because we don't have to build in any taxi time because we're already there. There we go. And we'll keep our I 15,559, send data to flight sim, unpause it, and now we have the correct amount of fuel. And let us finish our perf data. We have 76 passengers, plug that in, and we have a cargo weight of 15,559. 15,559, enter, and we have fuel on board of 8,500. Plug that in. Okay, that gives us a gross weight 78,910, which agrees with, what does it agree with? I hate when this happens. Takeoff mass 65,199 plus our cargo gets us 78,903. That is correct. Okay, good. So we want about an hour of reserves, and so let's give us 1,800. It's not quite an hour of reserves. Actually, let's put that in first. Actually, you know what? I put it in the wrong place. 1,800 plus holding time of about a half an hour, plus a little secret stash of 500 pounds, which is about another 15 minutes of flying time. And now we go to our perf page, and well, it's saying we've got 10 hours of flying time, but that's because we're idling right here, so it's not really very accurate. But that should do us. Go back to our flight plan, and that's good. Now let's do a quick final takeoff checklist. Bus tie off, heats on, lights on, seatbelt signs on, bleeds on and min, that is correct. AP off, that is correct. Anti-ice off, that is fine. Landing altitude is fine. Lights are extinguished. These are our caution lights right here. Anti-skid is on. AFCS, which is the autopilot, is set. You know what let's do? We've got an altitude of 8,000 set. Let's put in alt cell, the magic button, so we stop there. Nav is set. It's pink needles, LNAV, all good, all fine. Auxiliaries on. Fuel pumps on. Auto feather on. Gust lock off. Flaps set. Trim needs to be a little bit more nose down. We've got a nice long runway and we don't want to go skyrocketing up. Transponder on. Squawking altitude. Trim is set at 11 right, which is fine, but let's just get our controls recalibrated here. I've got a little knob on my throttle quadrant set up for that, and this is to counteract the prodigious torque that these engines have. Nose wheel steering on, and looks good to go. I just want to check our frame rates here. Getting 70 frames a second. That's mighty nice. I'm a little bit stuttery, which I don't like, but we'll see why that is in a second. Let me just check our gauges are all set up the way we like them. I've got these bound as well. That's not set up right. I've got these all bound to some keys in FSU IPC, so I can just very quickly, by hitting the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, call up this. This is 5, for example. 4 is the ArcDo, 3 is the FMS, 2 is the MFD, and the PFD is 1. So I can very quickly toggle those. Flaps are set fine, hydraulics are fine. Radar we're not going to need, but at this point it can come on, and it is. And so with that, let's do it to it. Off comes the parking brake. Again, I'm sort of repeating myself just for people who are joining in, want to know how to run the Mighty Dash. What we're going to do, this is a FADEC controlled system, which means that we don't have to worry about overspeeding or over-torquing the engines. We have set what's called N-top, or normal takeoff power, which is down here. We can set maximum, or we can even derate it. As a matter of fact, let's do that. Because it's a long runway, even though it's probably a little bit hot, we will derate the engines a little bit, and so we will move this knob, and you see it says reduce takeoff power, and we're going to reduce our takeoff power to 83%. So it's going to be a longer takeoff roll. But now when we move the power levers to index right here, instead of setting 90, it will set 83. So we are going to start our clock, and we're going to move our power levers forward. Make sure everything is copacetic. It is, and so we're going to move up to that index point, just jam them all the way forward. And now you can see we come up to, if you notice right there, we only come up to 83% torque, and there's the little green index mark where it is. So there's 80 knots, and we're accelerating kind of slowly, but also, as you can see, we've got an enormous runway ahead of us. So we're coming up on V1 and rotate, so we will. We gently pull about 3 degrees per second, I think it is, up to that point and trim up. We bring up our gear, retrim a little bit, stay on that index mark, and we keep the needle centered. We are hand flying this airplane because this airplane begs to be hand flown. Okay, so we're above our flaps speed. We'll start to bring up our flaps. And I'm just barely touching this with my fingertips. That's how nice it is. Getting a little bit of a turbulent gust there, some thermals or something. And we're above 1,000 feet, so we're going to bring our props back to max climb. And you notice how they slow down? They slow down to 900. And up we go. We're just crossing the middle marker here. That's how fast we're climbing. And we're at about a good speed. I'm going to set the climb mode to IAS, or indicated airspeed. And now the needle is going to guide me so that when I climb, if I keep my flight bars, those two little marks right there on the left and the right of the artificial horizon, on that pink needle, I'll be going at approximately 184 knots. And we're getting a little bit of bump. Alright, now that we're somewhat established, I'm going to take care of some business. So I'm going to put in the autopilot, and you'll notice it'll keep us at 180 some odd, 84 knots. Turn off our auto feather and our pumps and our auxes, and at this point turn the bleeds to normal, otherwise we're going to not be able to pressurize quite the way we need to, and we will pass out. So, wanting to avoid that, up we go. And ordinarily maximum climb is, I believe, 91% torque. So I think the derate even applies to the climb setting. So let's do this, just for yucks. Let's cancel our reduced power mode, and let's see if it goes up. No, doesn't. Okay, all right. You think you're learning something, and maybe you're not. Alright, so away we go. Let's check our progress. Alright, so we're flying at about 152 somewhere, and we're going to pretend we get vectored around a little bit of incoming traffic. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all make sure that we have our heading bugs squared up to the way we're going already. We're 1,000 feet away from our initial altitude, and they're going to say turn right heading 170. So what we're going to do is pop into heading mode and turn our heading knob to 180 after acknowledging the instructions, of course, reading them back. And you notice we're deviating from the magenta line, but that's because we're flying manually at this point. And we will just let that play out for a minute or two. And take a look at the scenery, because we can at this point. And now ATC is going to tell us to climb to 250, and we are United 125, and so we're going to say climb and maintain 230, United 125, and we're going to spin our altitude bug up to 250, hit alt cell again, go into IAS mode again, and now we're going to have to spin our speed down, because you can see right now we are at 246 knots, and we want to climb at about 210. So and now ATC will say United 125 cleared direct Lovec, and we will say thank you very much, cleared direct Lovec, United 125. And so what we'll do is we'll first go into the FMC, we'll hit D20 or DTO for direct 2, and we'll choose 5 for Lovec, and then we will see that the magenta line has changed, and we'll switch our mode back into nav, and hey presto, the airplane will turn us, and we'll apply some power, and it will turn us direct Lovec. We'll retrim, because that's what we do in the dash, and away we go. Not entirely sure if Iraq looks quite like that, but in the areas around the rivers there are places that resemble it somewhat. There is farmland interspersed with desert. There are big main roads that cut across big swaths of the country. Part of that is the legacy of the Ba'ath Party and Saddam Hussein. They had big highways, both as for national improvement, but also for defense. And a whole mix of everything in Iraq. There were Russian influences, or Soviet influences, American influences, all the normal influences of the area. There is the effect of being next door to Iran. There's an enormous Shia population. There are pilgrimages to several Shiite holy cities in Iraq all the time. And, you know, let's not forget it's an ancient crossroads of the world, so a little bit of everything. And there's the Gulf traffic and trade there, and oil. It's a place that is full of history, and maybe a little too much history lately, but it doesn't want for interest or excitement. So we are now direct Lovec, and if you notice, because I am not updating us on our right-hand side, what I will do before I do anything is scrub our heading bug again. But you'll notice this still has our old course in it, so I'm just going to, for hygiene's sake, in case we lose this FMS and want to use this one, open up the second one, and I'm going to sync it up direct Lovec, boom, and now the left and the right agree. So if worse really comes to worst and we lose this one, have to switch over to this one and switch the nav source to FMS2, what we have in FMS2 will reflect what's in FMS1, so we won't have to figure out how to navigate literally, as they say, on the fly. Anyway, we're above our transition altitude, so let's set standard altimeter. And apart from that, I think we're pretty much good to go. So what I'm going to do is cut the video here, and we will pick up the proceedings just a little bit closer to Kuwait, probably near top of descent, so we can talk descent planning and things like that. I'll see you in a bit. And we're back over a river down there that mysteriously vanishes into nothing. Not quite sure about that. I know a lot of strange things happen in the world, but I don't know rivers that just disappear. But that's just the wonders of a program that used to be Flight Simulator and is now prepared. Anyway, we're about 7 or 8 minutes from top of descent. On the way into Kuwait, we are going to be flying, a little change of plans because of the weather. We are going to be flying the Ralka 2 Charlie arrival, so we're going to be going from here over Ralka down this way, and then we are going to hook a right and catch the ILS 33 right arrival, and we're not going to do the procedure that begins with a hold here and then a procedure turnout here. Instead, we're going to get vectors and come direct in, because this is just a little bit too weird for this time of night, but it can be done. You would just navigate to the Kuwait VOR and then come out on radial and then fly it for 10 miles, descend to 2,000 feet, and then make a standard rate turn that would lead you to an intercept of the localizer at about 10 miles from the field. Instead, we're going to come in here to a point somewhere about here and get vectored in this way. I don't know in real life how many aircraft into what must be a reasonably busy airport fly this kind of full procedure. I am guessing with the multitude of, let me just check where we are with respect to our descent. Okay, 8 minutes away. Still have a little talk time. I'll have to check with a real world pilot who does this, but if you look at all these stars, they all dump you off, or many of them dump you off somewhere here, or here, or here, or there, and it seems to me it would be sort of odd to fly a star here, fly direct into here, or from Passel, say, direct into here, and fly this procedure outbound. It would seem to be an awkward way to funnel traffic around, but I'm not sure. I gotta say, I don't know. if I were controlling a vast amount of traffic coming in from the south and from the northeast and a few from the northwest, not sure I would then funnel everybody in to an approach like that, but who knows? I'm not an aviation authority, I'm not an air traffic controller, and maybe I've got it all wrong. But one never knows. Do one, as they say. And speaking of which, I just have to answer a quick piece of email. As we do that, you'll see that the top of descent is drawn right here on the MFD. This green needle is my RMI needle for NAV2, which I've tuned into the Kuwait VOR for situational awareness, and at the moment we're pointing right at it, but we're actually going to fly to the east of it and then loop back around from the south east. And it's almost past my bedtime, so it's broad daylight here in Kuwait, but I'm recording this about 1 in the morning, which is not atypical because that's my normal hours. But anyway, hang on, let me just answer this email. For anybody brave enough to email me at this hour of the night, and they certainly deserve a reply as well. Done and dusted. All right, so speaking of dusted, wow, have we got dust. Let's get our weather in Kuwait and our altimeter. All right, 1906 knots. We're going to have a slight quartering tailwind, but I like the challenge. 3012. We will very, very quickly put that in our standby altimeter, which we're going to use as a scratch pad. What I've also done is I've programmed in the runway length and touchdown zone elevation and glide slope here for our HUD, so that'll be set up if we want to use it. Now, I've also set our V speeds for landing. This solid is our VREF. Now, ordinarily, you would put your V climb here, or at least some people, some pilots, some airlines do. I tend to instead put my V app, which is my VREF plus 5, plus any additive for the wind. The reason being is when you fly the HUD and you fly it in a landing configuration, you will have a speed target that will tell you whether you're above or below your V app. And if you set a V climb for your V app, it will give you erroneous guidance. It will tell you whether you're on target or not for a speed that's considerably higher than the one you actually want to be descending on. So I set it for my approach speed. That way, when I do fly with the HUD and it presents a speed target right here, a trend vector, a little chevron that's pointing up or down, but also a bar that goes up or down that tells you whether you're at, above, or below your target speed. And you want the target speed to be there. You don't want it to be 154, which might be your V climb. So, you know, that is why I do that. And let's see what else we need to do to get ready for our descent. I had my ice protection on for a little while because we went through some fairly high clouds with some moisture in it. We will already turned on, fastened seatbelt sign, our lights are fine, everything else is cool. Let's set our landing altitude, which is, we're going to make it 500 feet above our airfield elevation, and that's close enough. That is mainly to make sure we are fully depressurized by the time we hit the pavement. And let's see, more email. Wow, I'm Mr. Popularity this time of the at this time of the night. And the boiling water. That's my email response. It's like telling the punchline of a joke without telling the setup. My reply to the email I just got is, "End the boiling water." And I will leave it to you, the gentle viewers, to guess what the email was that I was responding to. Okay, so our vertical deviation dingus is showing up, and so we can set VNAV for our mode, and it will not enunciate. I'm mashing the button, it's not enunciating, and here's why. I've got our present altitude set. In order for it to enunciate, I have to hit anything below where I'm at, but what I really want to do is I'm going to set the very first constraint, and our first constraint is actually pretty much almost our last constraint, which is 3,000 or above at the waypoint at the fix, whose name eludes me, tab 2 or tab toe. So we're coming up on our top of descent. We're less than a minute away from it, and I'm getting more email. Wow, I tell you, I'm not boasting here, you understand. I'm just mainly annoyed because some of these are coming from work, and certainly nobody's calling me into work, but it's work questions, and it's not work time, which is a crying shame. And now I'm going to reply same with Trish, and you can guess the setup for that punchline. Okay, we've captured our VNAV path, and we're going downhill, and we're at the river delta that defines the beginning of the Persian Gulf. I think this is the Shatt al-Arab waterway, but I'm not sure. I really should know, but I don't. I used to know. I'm just rolling off the power here, keeping us right around barber pole speed. Don't want to get too much higher. And we're just cooking on down here. Now, as you can see here, let's put up the HUD. Let's fly with the HUD for a minute so you can see what the HUD does. This is our slip indicator. That's our barber pole. That's our speed trend. It's our 3-degree down line, which we're more or less maintaining. Now I'm just going to trim our rudder a little bit and watch what happens here. In that comes, boom. And you'll notice our speed stops slowing down because we've now taken a little bit of drag off the airframe, because it's no longer slicing diagonally into the wind. Instead, it is slicing straight aheadedly into the wind. The inner ring and the outer one is our flight path vector, which is where the airplane is going to go, regardless of where the nose is pointing. You see the nose is pointing a little higher than the vector. That is because even though our nose is down, we are sinking. Our alpha is greater. In other words, we are here. Well, let me show you outside. I can bring a little more speed back in. Actually, watch what happens when I bring the speed back in. You'll notice that the nose sinks down. But here, let me just, for argument's sake, I'm going to roll off the power a bit more. That's a bit much. And now watch. The nose is coming up, but we are still sinking. So, watch. You can see we're still going down, but our nose is pointing somewhat up. So what I'm going to do is, because we're slowing down too much, bring the power back on, and down we go. And as you can see, we're going to loop around to the east of the airport, then come into the south. Now, continuing our guided tour of the HUD, or the HGS, the Head-Up Guidance System, I think. This is our HSI, which replicates that down there. This is our airspeed and our barber pole. This is our heading, and it's replicated down here. Altimeter, and this is our vertical deviation, and we're on it, our 3-degree down. Our standard slip indicator, our standard annunciator, mode annunciators, which are up there. That's all fine. This is our VAP and our VREF. This is our CDI, course deviation indicator. This is our rate of descent. We're going down at 1,700 feet per minute. This is our FMS course. And this is our distance from our next waypoint, which, a shame, it doesn't display the name of it. I wish it would. Just for better essay, I wish it would say Ralka up there instead of just 32.3. But it's telling us we're drawing from FMS1. And I'm just going to rotate the heading bug around, and you can see two things. You can, first of all, you can see that the heading bug shows up right down there. And it also shows up right here. Now, you might be wondering why is our nose pointing this way, but our flight path vector this way? And the answer is that tailwind, which is a little bit obscured by the numbering right here. It's one of the heading numberings, 140, is stepping on the speed indicator, but we've got a 19-knot crosswind, and it is pushing our vector this way, which is why our nose is pointing this way. Our needles, our balls are still aligned because this is the track we want to go, but in order to do that track, we have to put our nose here. And the reason why this isn't moved over here is then because it would be very confusing and you'd become disoriented. So even though pointing your nose this way, if you were flying this manually, what you'd want to do, let me just pull down the speed a little bit. What you would want to do if you were flying this manually is you would still want to keep these balls lined up. And pretty soon you'd be paying attention to these, and you wouldn't really notice, strictly speaking, that your nose is pointing this way. It just would sort of organically end up that way. It becomes very easy to do crabs and do crosswind landings with this, because you just plunk this on the end of the runway, and then you adjust the rudder pedals so that it stays plunked on the end of the runway, and you don't quite notice that you're actually flying a crab because you're focused on this. It's a neat little trick, I suppose. Anyway, let's see if we're picking up any icing. Okay, we're not. And we're cooking on down. We're going to come down as fast as we possibly can here, because why the hell not? Because it's fun. Still getting good frame rates. Getting a little jittery or juddery with the panning in the cockpit, but flying P3D is endless tweaking. We've got a little bit of ice. Let's just... Alright, you see right there? We do have some ice. Now let's see what we can do. We're going fast enough we're not going to fall out of the sky. So we got a decision to make. Do we want to turn on the anti-ice, the ice protection? We could. There's no real reason not to. You can see from the spigot here, it's just a light buildup. But better safe than sorry. So we'll turn on the boots for a minute or two, open up the engine intakes, and presto changeo, as you can see. Already it's knocked the ice right off of it. We're just sort of minor stuff. Anyway, let's scale down our display right here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set our approach course on the VOR, on the localizer on this side. So I'm going to hold down the format key. It's going to give us a preview of that. We're going to make sure it's 110.5, and it is. And we will spin our course until it says 332. And now that is set up. You notice as we're flying, you can see we're flying right here, sort of parallel to the localizer, and you can see also here that it's set up so that looks like we're flying parallel to it. flying on a right downwind is what we're doing. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, since I already know we're over Kuwait, I don't need that VOR anymore, although I will need it for a missed approach, so I'll have it in standby still, is I'm going to make both sides 110.5 or the localizer, and that is so that it will let us fly the HUD in the maximum accurate mode in as a Cat 2 approach. I'm not sure that this approach is certified for Cat 2, so just for academic purposes. Anyway, I'm going to hold down the format key, and it, you can see, goes back to this display. All right, let's just quickly pull our power out a little bit more because we're getting close to our maximum speed. Weather 31.2, coming below 10,000, so we'll set that. And I just set our altitude instead of our altimeter. Set our altimeter right here. Alright, 31.2 as we sort of turn a lazy base leg here. Now this is going to then put us above our course, our descent path. Square up our heading bug again. We'll take a look here now that we're below 10. We will put our lights on, do our approach checklist, we'll turn off our ice protection, we don't need it. We're below it. Boom, boom. Okay, lights, heats, bleeds can come to min. And GPWS flaps are 15. We're going to be landing 15. V speeds are set. Seatbelt signs are on. HUD is set up. Radios are tuned. Altitude constraint is set. Beautiful looking day. Transponder is a squawking, so don't come a knocking. We are still, this is now pointing at the localizer. Let's just check our procedures. Well, I would, except that. There we go. Okay, so 3-3 right, ILS DME. Okay. Caution highway, 3,500, 204 feet. Missed approach is runway heading to DME 4. Direct Kuwait, climb 3,000, and presumably vectors. And then hold at Kuwait. Probably then to be vectored to be shot out again this way. Alright, so. In a second we're going to spin this down to a lower altitude just so that it doesn't, the alerter doesn't bitch at us. If I had a first officer, he or she would, as soon as we get established and hit the final approach fix, would spin it back up to 3,000, and I will try to if I've got the manual dexterity to do it. Alright, let's get ourselves set up right here. You can see we're not picking up our localizer yet. We're a little bit offset from it, a little bit far away. Since we're not going to go above 50% power again right now, we'll set our props and get ready to go for that. We'll also set our pumps and our auxes. Auto feather stays off. Do a quick check of the hydraulics. They're cool. Rudder trim is, well, rudder trim is whatever it needs to be. You know, I don't know if there's any religion about returning it to neutral for landing. There might be. On the other hand, with the power changes you have in this plane, you're always diddling around with the rudder trim. So I don't imagine it ever quite returns to normal, but we're keeping a nice speed coming down, about 20% torque. So what we're going to do is we're going to set it up so that the props will remain at 850, but these levers will come forward, and the computer will automatically move the props to max if we move the power levers above 50%, as in a go-around. So hit this, reduced NP landing enunciates, up come the levers, and the props stay where they are. It is magic. Alright, now you can see this is pointing right back. That's the tail of the RMI needle is pointing right back at our localizer course, 1,000 away from our constraint, and it should carry us through our constraint because the next one is 2,000. And let's just bring back the power here. Get a little sporty. Nice looking water. I believe got a nice view of Kuwait City, unless that's Kuwait City. Let's see if we can see the field. The field should be roughly about there. We are 15 miles from the field, give or take. We're clipping right on in. And now let's see if we can pick up our localizer. Yes, okay, so there's our localizer. I'm just looking at the nav2 display over here. And what we can do, well, we're gonna let it turn us, and then we'll switch over to blue needles ourselves. We could do it right now, probably, but let's fly the procedure as intended. Or let's try to. We'll come down to about 210, just so that we're not, just so that we can enjoy the ride, I guess. Alright, so now notice how it's descending us, and so we'll spin our alerter down to 2,000 so it doesn't scream about being below our alert altitude. We'll feed a little power back in, and you can see, there we go, we're just coming across the localizer. Not there yet. Let us do this. Bring in a little more power. I'm going to hold this down for a second. Alright. I'm going to set an intercept heading here for this here localizer. Get us into heading select mode. And I'll put us in vertical speed mode. Bring us down about 500 feet per minute. I'm going to put a floor on this thing right here at 2,000 so that we don't go below that when we, so we can intercept the, okay, here comes the localizer. Pop us into nav mode. And it's going to grab it. Watch this. Round we come. I hope we don't overshoot it. Maybe not. Alright. And now we can, boom, there's our nav source. Well, we might overshoot it slightly. We are below the glide slope, but we'll fix that in a second. I'll level off at 2,000. No, I think we got it. Overcooked it a little. Come on. Alright, I'm going to take it and do it ourselves here. Okay, we're below the glide slope. Put us back in, that's why. We were in roll mode for a second. Alright. We can feed in our first notch of flaps, get on the rudder pedals, and fly the flight director. Okay. know, it keeps popping us out of nav mode. I don't like that. All right, approach mode it is. Come on. Let's get serious here. Approach mode. Hey, all right. See, now this is where it gets sloppy. All right. I've got the field, so I hate when that happens. All right, we're on profile. Gear can come down. You know, I hate when that happens. I'm half flying this visually and half looking at our pink needles here. Off comes some power. Here we go. And we're back on the flight director, although it's bitching at us. We are on the glide path. Let's put in our next notch of flaps.
1,000.
Lose a little speed. There we are. Hate when a plan falls apart. Okay, put in our final notch of flaps. Slow down to our V-app. I'm just going to kill that. And our speed trend is down. We're at virtually idle power, so I'm going to start to pull the nose up right there. Feed in some power. Trying to stay ahead of the airplane.
500.
There we go. All right. We got this. I'll land a little bit long so we get to the second high-speed turnoff. Or actually the first high-speed turnoff. A little bit fast.
Plus 100.
Gonna let that crosswind watch. I'm gonna let it push us across here. Look at that. There we go.
Minimums.
Now I'm gonna crab into it. Catch it. And I'm gonna aim for about the
100.
last touchdown marker. Because I want to land long.
50. 40. 30.
A little more power.
20. 10.
There we are. And float. There we go. And into beta. And let's go for that high-speed turnoff. If we can see it. There we are. All right. Well, welcome to Kuwait, where the local time is, screwed up the approach 30, but we saved it. It's a nice clear Gulf day, desert day, and not only that, look, I'm on the edge of the taxiway, not in the middle of it, but hey, that's part of the fun of flying, isn't it? All right, well, we tried to do it by the book, and what you saw there was a little bit of mode confusion, a little bit of the phenomenon known as what's it doing now? I was in, let me just quickly show you. I hit nav even though I was in pink needles, and it was continuing to fly the approach path because it'll fly an overlay no matter what. So I erroneously thought I'd acquired the localizer when I hadn't acquired the localizer. I was simply flying on the FMS path. So that was mistake one. Mistake two was when I got too far deviated in this nav mode. And I didn't notice that my enunciator up here was saying, instead of approach like that, instead it was, I can't get it to display like this, but it was basically not wings level, but it was in roll hold mode. It was holding the turn that I had, holding the bank, and I didn't realize that I had to hit nav, and I also had to hit approach to get it to acquire both. So basically it was a case of getting established too late and then interpreting the signals wrong. But that's why we do these on fake planes, because we can do that. Look at that C-17 there. Wow. Anyway, with that, lesson learned, I hope for me at least. For you, I hope you enjoyed it. And as always, thanks for your subscriptions, thanks for your comments, and thanks for your well wishes. And thanks for watching. See you again real soon.